Welcome. I'm Kirk, your host of the Beyond podcast, and I'm pleased to have my friend Amy as my guest. And we met through a mutual friend, in the HR world. So, Amy, let's just open things up. Tell me about yourself. Who are you?
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for having me. I am Amy Thaler, and I am remarkably a seventh generation Washingtonian. I've grown up in the area, and Kirk, you and I are neighbors, which is lovely. Interestingly, I'm a physical education undergrad, and I came right out of college and went to work for internationally renowned law firm, Latham and Watkins, and kind of cut my teeth in the business world with them, which was a great opportunity. And I've done a lot of different things in my life. I was worked for Latham out of college, as I said. That was in New York City. Then I got transferred to LA. Stayed with them for a little bit. I worked in real estate. Then I did a startup mail order catalog, which was really exciting and worked really hard. Then I decided to go to business school, which really changed the way I think remarkably. I've lived all over. I've lived in New York City, LA, Boston, Park City, Utah, New Zealand, and then back in DC. I've raised 17 guide dog puppies for the blind, for 3 schools in 2 different countries. I have a daughter that's about to graduate from high school and go to the University of Washington. Go Huskies. I also have a 14-year-old cat from New Zealand who has lost her accent. Yeah, and I'm
Ah,
just a mom and executive coach, leadership coach, business consultant, and yeah, loving life right now.
okay, so let's go back. You said your education was physical education.
Oh, so maybe I left that part out. I was an undergrad physical education from Ithaca College in upstate New York, and then after working in the business world for a while, because I did a lot of teaching before I went to college, and by the time I got out of college, I had a really less than ideal teaching experience, student teaching experience in college. I decided I didn't want to teach anymore, so I pivoted and then after 10 years in the working world, I went to business school. And when I came out of business school, I took a different path. I went to work for Arthur Andersen, if people remember who they are.
Yeah. So you when you were in college for physical education, it was like you found out not for you. Certain things happen. Why business? What led you to take that jump?
Well, actually, I ended up going to work for Latham, and that just was happenstance. My neighbor at in Chevy Chase was a lawyer. It was a French embassy house. Growing up, the French embassy had a house next to ours, and the husband worked for the French embassy, but the wife, Sandra Dupuy, worked for Latham and Watkins. And she said, "Oh, the New York office is looking for a recruiting coordinator. Are you interested?" And I said, "Sure." I was looking for a job. I was fresh out of college. I was looking for anything, right? As you do. And I went up and interviewed with them. And I come from a family of lawyers. Everyone said I should be a lawyer, but I really like to be a client, not a lawyer, actually. That's probably a whole different topic of conversation. So
Yeah.
I interviewed with them. Great firm, great opportunity. It was just a fantastic experience. I was doing these. This is back in the late '80s, early '90s, when recruiting at law firms was big business. I had $1 million budget coming out of college, and throwing parties and events and recruiting top candidates from law firms. It was a great time, and just over between that experience and the experience at that startup mail order catalog, I really, got quite interested in business and running operations, back office operations, and kind of a lot of people call it the administrivia of business, but I really got into it and developed my career, CEO, COO roles, top box roles throughout my career.
Yeah. So it sounds like there was no big vision. Like, when you're 5 years old, I want to be a businesswoman, and it wasn't that. It was just didn't like
No,
teaching, and somebody made an
I've
offer.
always been I've always been so jealous of those people that knew what they wanted to be. I mean, really, it's only been very recently that I have much better focus of what I truly want to do. And that has a lot to do with a tool that I use now, psychometric tool, which, we can talk about. But it's so hard. I talk about this with my daughter. She really thinks she wants to be an anthropologist and she's going to be studying anthropology. And I'm like, okay, I'm glad that you have that passion and that's your vision. But, you know, Anchor, I'm a big Adam Grant fan. I don't know if you know who Adam Grant is, but
Yep.
one of my favorite quotes, and it was just a line in his rethinking book, which is anchor yourself in a sense of flexibility. And I love that quote. And I just keep encouraging her. It's like, okay, that's your passion, that's great, but anchor yourself in a sense of flexibility. And I really think that's what my career has been about. I have just been offered incredible opportunities that with good people that I think, oh, that'll be really interesting. I'll go do that for a while. Like when the opportunity at the Salt Lake Olympics came up to work in the ceremonies department, I had no entertainment background at all. I had no business, doing the job that I was offered, but I had a good connection. I'm a connector. We were talking about that earlier. And a upper class, a classmate a couple years ahead of me at USC was going to work at the Olympics in the ceremonies department, and he needed somebody that he could rely on and trust and had good skills. And he pulled me along with him, and it was a fantastic opportunity.
Yeah.
So I went.
Yeah. So you jump in, the opportunity comes in, you jump in. So somewhere there's a sense of confidence, even if you don't know all the how, or maybe even the what and the why, the how, you get in there. So, Amy, just what we're describing here, I mean, there's stages of life, right? Most people start out working, whatever job's available, maybe some idea what they want to do. But I'm willing to bet that your daughter, as she gets into that field, she might learn that she likes something else, because that's what college is all about, right? I mean, how many people don't change their major? How many people don't change their major? I dropped out and joined the Army, right?
Right.
But that's a beautiful thing for her, right? Right, where she can kind of be on the journey. So you for whatever reason you got in, the business, you got offered a job, you jumped in, one thing led to another. It sounded like you really went from like the admin, get in there, work, the working bee, to you made a transformation to more of a professional stage. Is that accurate?
Well, I think from early stages, I always was given a lot of responsibility. I just early on in my life, even when I was in high school, I was the assistant manager at a movie theater. I just have always stepped up to the plate. I'm very tall. A lot of people associate that with confidence. I'm an outgoing personality. I'm very assertive. Again, this goes back to these inherent personality traits that are established in people by about the age of 2. They're innate. It's a lot of this work that I do in my career now around personality traits and personality assessments, psychometrics. I am an outgoing. I'm a fairly assertive individual, and because I'm so outgoing and assertive, it comes across very confidently, right? So I've always been given a fair amount of and I'm a very responsible person. So I've always been given a lot of responsibility in my roles, and I step up to the plate, and that continues to be rewarded with higher and higher levels of responsibility. So I've just ascended in whatever role I've been given. And for example, at Latham, when my first job out of college, I was in their New York office. The woman that led all of the recruiting for all of the offices, kind of their main office in LA, she was going out on maternity leave. They wanted someone to go cover. So I'll go to LA and cover for her until she comes back. So they moved me to LA to cover. So it's just been, I see an opportunity. It sounds like a good opportunity. I'll step up to the plate and off I go.
Yeah. Yeah, and it sounds like for the most part it works out. Has there been certain times where there have been real setbacks, where you jump into a situation and it just rolls, kind of caves in on itself?
Yes,
Like
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, there have been, there's one significant one actually just before the pandemic, which kind of led me to start my own business. It was more about, I mean, we can jump into it if you want. It was not a good organizational cultural fit, I'd say. And so I joined this firm. I was introduced through a connection, this organization. And it's when I was first introduced to the psychometric tool I work with called Managing Performance in Organizations. And it absolutely revolutionized how I manage, how I lead, how I interact with my team members. So I had joined this company, and great people. I mean, just sincerely great people. It was a government contractor. 8A had developed to about 160 FTEs, doing very well. And initially, I interviewed for a chief of staff role, and through that discussion, determined that they didn't really need a chief of staff. The CEO didn't need a chief of staff. What he really needed was more a COO, and took the role as EVP of operations. Mm-hmm. But what ended up happening is the CEO didn't really frame it with the rest of the organization in the same way. So there was some confusion when I came in about what my role really was and what I was responsible for. And my perspective, I didn't feel I was set up for success from the start. So I had a very bumpy start. And there were some other factors that complicated it, which I don't think we really have time to go in. But I was introduced, I needed some external support for HR. I had 5 or 6 different functions underneath me. So one of them was HR. And I was introduced to our mutual friend, right, Lee DeWolf, who works with this psychometric assessment tool called MPO. So she came in to do a general HR assessment and introduced the MPO tool to us, and we implemented it at this company. And it revolutionized how I deal with the entire employee life cycle. And I took the assessment and realized that, I mean, I knew I was unhappy in the role, but it made a lot of different things clear that it just wasn't a good fit. Long story short, we were going through the budgeting cycle. I was responsible for finance and accounting in addition to other functions. And I realized that in order to get our wrap rate down, we needed to make some cuts. And I realized that if I exited myself, if I reorged myself out, there was another executive there who had the background and experience that could take over my role and responsibilities. It would take a lot of load off the wrap rate, which is a government contract key factor. It would reduce the overhead quite substantially and would get our wrap rate down. And it just was kind of an elegant way. There were some other things I was working on budget-wise. It was an elegant way for me to exit. Yeah. So I went to the CEO and I proposed this plan, and he jumped on it like that because he and I were having a lot of conflict that I had tried to resolve and was not resolving. So I exited January of 2020.
2020, right the minute before. It was February. By March 25, COVID was blowing out, right?
So I had some other opportunities lined up, and I had a final round of one role that I was very excited about. It was working for a for-profit company that worked with nonprofits, so I was very happy about that. And my final interview was scheduled for March 14th of 2020, which I think was the same day they announced the global pandemic officially. Yeah. So yeah, that was a challenge. That didn't work so well. So I continued to look, and I had a great opportunity that I went through an absolute ringer of interviews, multiple rounds, case studies, you name it, psychometric assessments, cognitive assessments with New Zealand Trade and Enterprise, which I was very excited about because I'd be able to get back to New Zealand and, stay connected. And I got to the final. I was down to the final 2. It was between me and one other candidate. They came back to me and they said, "Amy, you're just too good for this role." I thought, really? Isn't that my choice? Offer me the role and I get to decide if I'm too good for it or not. I mean, so that didn't happen. So I pivoted and I thought, okay, I really needed to think about what I wanted to do. And I, went back to my psychometric assessment and looked at my skills and my strengths and, talents, and really tried to just determine what was going to be best. And we're in the middle of the pandemic, and I thought, all right, I'm going to pivot. So I decided plan B was plan meant to be, and decided I was going to do my own thing. So I did my own thing. And then I got a call from a very good friend who was the executive chairman for a cybersecurity company. And she needed help, and they had HR issues. And so, long story short, I started working with them as a 1099 and implemented MPO with them. And then they loved that and really liked the work I was doing. And so they asked me to come on full time with them. So I helped, they were a post private equity acquisition at the end of 2020. And I helped them build their HR function out from 50, they were about 50 FTEs when I joined them, to 140 FTEs, and focused on culture and hiring the right people and the right role and structure and process, and created some order out of chaos. And I did such a fabulous job of building that group and that function, and my team, that they're like, we don't need you anymore. Yeah. So then I exited them in April, and I'm back to doing what I love, which is helping people and businesses. So, yeah. But that first GovCon just was not a good fit.
Yeah, and it sounds like I want to emphasize the power of data, clarity, the assessment. For you, team members, you can see what's. Sometimes it's very hard to put teams together, right? Unless there's some kind of scoring mechanism, some kind of way of looking into somebody's, for who they really are. What's natural for that person versus, trying to put the, square pegs and round holes, that kind of stuff. Can we talk a little bit about the data, the assessment? I want to dive deep a little bit in that to get it, because I think we all experience it, right, in business. Who hasn't hired team members and even key team members and partners that, man, it's like pushing a rock uphill. Something's not a fit, but it's hard. Speaking of myself, it's hard to really figure out where the miss is, right? Where's that gap? So can we dive deeper into the MPO? And first of all, what does the MPO mean?
Yeah. So MPO is managing performance in organizations, and it is data. And I find it really interesting because, I also have run a lot of finance groups, right? And we spend so much time, especially, so I've done acquisitions and have sold companies, and people spend so much time focusing when buying a company, private equity, venture capital, investing in companies, and doing due diligence on the financial data, right? They dive deep into the books. They dig through cash flows and forecasts and, contracts. And it's all about that kind of data. But, so infrequently, it's becoming more popular to start looking at the data on the people. And that's what these assessments do. They're not tests. It's not a pass fail. People are people. They just who they are, right? But these assessments give you insights into it. And it's all based on some research that was done back in the 1980s by this guy Goldberg. And he established what's called as the Big Five, which are just fundamental components of your personality, all set essentially by the time you're 2, interestingly enough. And these assessments, they've evolved a bit. So the assessment we work with looks at 7 different factors, but it takes about, I think on average, maybe 8 minutes. Some people take up to 20 minutes. It's a very quick assessment. It gives you an understanding of somebody's inherent personality on those 7 factors. It looks at 46 different talents, meaning, what your inherent talent is. Everybody can become competent at something, right? Like if you look at Larry Bird, he wasn't a natural basketball player, but he worked really hard at it, versus, Michael Jordan, who is just more naturally talented. They both worked very hard. One was more gifted than the other. But it gives you incredible amount of data and talent information on talent and personality, communication styles, well-being indicators. And you can also set it up. It's validated for hiring, which not all the tools are. So you can create a job profile of what you want this person, this individual, ideally to look like, right? From a personality and talent perspective. And right, we don't live in an ideal world. So you're not hiring, that's not a a strict criteria. If they don't meet it, we're not going to hire that person. But it gives you information upon which to help guide you, right? And if somebody doesn't meet all the criteria, then you understand going into the role how you need to better support them to be successful. So it's just revolutionized how I manage people as well. So when I go into a meeting with somebody, I can look at their communication style and understand how I can communicate that with them to be effective. Or if they're struggling in a role, what do I need to do to maybe help them be more successful in that role?
Yeah, that's huge. And so some of those skills. So there's the data analysis. It could be for an existing company, existing team, and especially if you're going through certain break points. There's break points where what used to work doesn't work anymore when you have a certain number of full-time equivalents, headcount, people. The I kind of see roughly 25. What used to work doesn't work anymore. Then it's 50.
Yeah.
Then it's 150 people. Then some like 250 people. Each of those, the fundamentals, it's not just a little bit different. It's like it don't work no more. How we approach people. And when you're describing that, so I think about the manager who's using the MPO. That person has, once you understand the other person or the other team, the other group, whatever it is, then it seems like an essential skill for the effective manager using the MPO is there's got to be some level of flexibility. Like, hey, I'm going to approach Tom this way because of who he is, but I'm going to approach Mary a different way because of who she is. That's a lot of flexibility, which goes back to our earlier conversation, right?
Right. Well, the thing is about managing is managers often manage people based on what works for them and not what works for their team members, right? And that's not how it should be. You need to manage people. If you want the best of people, I mean, you should manage them by what works for the individual, not what works for the manager. And I would also say I see it so much with clients that I work with. Managers get promoted. It's a Peter principle. They get promoted because what they're really good at one level, and then they get promoted to a manager, and they're not given very often, they're not given training at how to be a manager, how to lead people, how to support people, how to communicate effectively with people, right? They're just here, be a manager of people. Okay, but I was really just good at being an engineer, or I was really just good at being an individual contributor of some sort. And now you want me to lead a team, but you don't tell me how to do that. I mean, that's really a sad state of affairs. In my ideal world, I'd like there to be no bad leaders anymore. I'd like everyone to be a great leader, but that takes training, that takes support. And you have to train people how to do that and how to lead their teams effectively with a very diverse set of people. And not just diversity in how we traditionally think of it as far as culture and race and gender and identity, but diverse personalities.
Yeah, it's a real skill, and I think the requirements on the people side, the manager, leader, manager, I think the skills are much higher now in the post-COVID world than in the pre-COVID world because expectations have changed and locations have changed, and I think the world's pretty different. So I can see where having the data is the basis of clarity, but that's not the answer, right? The answer is how do you develop leadership skills? How do you make create the right options and make the right choice at the right time in using the data as a kind of an indicator? What how does this fit? You opened up, through a series of circumstances, you opened up Mana Advisory Group, right? How does all this fit into what you do?
Well, it is one tool in the toolbox, and it's one component of what I do. I focus on leadership coaching from frontline managers all the way up. I mean, I'll work with a variety of individuals, and this is one aspect of it. It's very helpful to me to use this tool to understand my clients, to understand the teams that I work with. It is a tool that I go in to use in organizations to help them develop their culture, develop their teams, understand their organizations better and their people better. So that's really the focus of my work is coaching and excuse me, and this assessment tool. But I also do some general business consulting, help create order out of chaos. You talk about those inflection points of with a certain number of employees. I often go into, I've got a long history of helping organizations that to create order out of chaos. They've grown really quickly and they need some structure, they need some process in a variety of different functions, or just overall. I've sat in the COO role, CEO role, HR, head of HR role, a variety of different functions. So I can help in that, just, kind of general back office ops, to sort things out. That's very helpful. And that also is a strength of mine from a coaching perspective. There are a lot of people that are leadership coaches, executive coaches, that haven't necessarily sat in the seat and don't have the diversity of experience that I have. And that's kind of one of my, that my secret sauce, I would say, right? I've been in so many different industries, and people either look at my resume and get it and understand it and love the diversity, or they don't understand me and don't know what to make of me, right? From a children's clothing to a law firm to the Olympics, right? They're like, I don't understand how that connects. And I tell people that, my diversity is what makes me really good at what I do, because I don't come in with preconceived notions of how something should work. I anchor myself in a sense of flexibility, right? I have an open mind, and I have, innovative, creative ideas about, hey, what if we try this? What if we do that? I look at things differently. And that's super helpful when you're coming into a situation. I listen a lot in the beginning. I don't, impose, well, this is how it should be done, right? I listen and try and absorb and figure out what might work best. So the fact that I've got an outside perspective is really helpful. And that's what coaching is about, right? The best athletes still need someone to say, hey, your elbow is sticking out when you threw that pitch. If you tuck it in, you'll get a better pitch, or whatever the case may be. I'm making stuff up.
There's no way they could see that themselves, right? They can't see, the body position as well as somebody on the outside. The variety of experience is huge, because you can cross fertilize. You've seen different things. It stimulates creativity, more tools, and it can really, I can see where teams you're working with, it really opens them up, right?
Yeah.
We thought we were playing big, but this is where the real action is for the business, where we can get out of the commodity world, get into the premium world, and at that point everything gets easier. Attracting talent, keeping talent, the financial velocity of cash.
Yeah, I mean, I work with such diverse clients. I actually coach a high school football coach, and I coach CEOs and of businesses, government contractors, and the executive director of USA Hockey. I mean, I have just a wide range of clients. I love my football coach, and I talk to him about, I don't know a lot about football, right? But he credits me with his, turning his football team around and from a losing team to a successful team. It's him, it's not me, but whatever. It's fun.
And this day and age, not having a coach, it's funny, like coming up, 30 years, business building, you fell into the financial side and to the CFO level. And then there's a gentleman by the name of Richard Rossi who was invested in a coach, strategic coach, Dan Sullivan, that kind of stuff. And I was early on in my career, and I asked him, Richard, what are you doing? What is this? Right? Because it was a significant investment. It wasn't you.
Yeah.
It was an investment. When you're bootstrapping a company, money matters. And he explained to me the coaching, there's one-on-one in a group, and the benefits of that. And I totally did not understand. Right, just went over my head. I said something to him about, Richard, are we building a business or living a country club lifestyle? I'm okay with either one. I just want to know which way we're going. And then years later, I started to notice the difference between people who have their coach, their peer groups that are expanding their thinking, learning how to collaborate even better, versus those that don't. I mean, and it's really kind of a dark place, isolated, not sure what the options are.
Well, and it's so important for, the executive level, CEO in particular, to have someone to talk to, because you don't necessarily want to bring a lot of the, your darkest thoughts, your worries, your concerns, the conflict between the other executives to those people, right? You have to have a trusted source where you can unload all of that. And you don't necessarily want to bring it home with you, dump it on your partner, your family. So
Don't,
bring it to me. I mean, that's what
yeah,
I'm here for.
yeah, don't bring it home because it bleeds over. You got no peace at home because what we're bringing to the household, not fun. I've done that. Not
How's that working for you?
not good, right?
Yeah.
I caused my own stuff, and that's the beautiful thing about the journey is being able to learn. Um, and we look at this world that we're in right now, like the technology acceleration that's happening, like not tomorrow, it's now.
Yeah.
AI, like general purpose AI, it's not just specific purpose. It can, like electricity, it can be used for all kinds of stuff. Blockchain. I mean, like blockchain accounting systems, blockchain's legal ledger, blockchain's property deeds, insurance is going to fundamentally change so much more than we know, the level of assurance and transparency, that kind of stuff. Web3, where
Mm.
Amazon doesn't own your data anymore. You do. You be as private as you want to be or not. Robotics. I mean, I don't know if you looked at like Boston Dynamics and stuff. Those robots are way beyond like the physical hardware, way beyond the physicality of a person like me and you. And then I think for companies, like, what are you doing now to use those technology intentionally, not waiting for things to happen to you? What are you doing now? And then 3 years from now, what do you expect? And I don't think 1 year the world's gonna be totally different, but I do think in 10 years it will be the fundamentals, the paradigms will be very different. And somewhere in between, quantum computing is coming. Like, I don't know, 5-10 years is lagging the first four. But quantum computing it's literally a different way of understanding reality. And so what are your thoughts about like the companies? How are they approaching this evolution, or not?
Well, that's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah.
I think so. I don't know. I mean, that's the one thing I'll tell you. When I don't know something, I'm a straight up person. I'll tell you. I mean, those are areas that are beyond my areas of expertise. What I focus on now, really what my passion is around helping people and the leadership. Like I said, extinguishing poor leadership. And in that area, I think that's a very human centric issue, right? And so I think a lot of those technologies don't necessarily apply, but for using things like data to assist and technologies to assist in solving some of those problems. But humans are humans. You still have to have that connection. So for what I do, I think they're assistive technologies. They're not dominant primary technologies. And I think keeping that in the forefront is important. I think still maintaining that human connection.
Yeah.
And that's not to get all like woo woo, whooshy, mushy, whatever. People will tell you that is not who I am. I'm a straightforward person. Um, I may have been called blunt a couple of times. My clients will tell you, "Oh, I got to talk to Amy." I mean, like it's coaching is not easy. You know, Clients will tell you, coaching there are hard times, and I tell people, I don't believe in um, I don't believe in like tying people up in a contract. I don't want people to feel like they're tied to a contract. It's 6 months, they're stuck, right? I want
Yeah.
people to come because they find value in it. So I'm not like sucking you in because you've got a contract. But I do tell people it's hard. Don't think for a minute. There are going to be days when you don't want to talk to me, and those are the days that are really important that we meet, right? But it is human, right? It's all human. So I see it assisting, not dominating.
Yeah, I think in fact the human skills are going to be elevated because the machines will be doing certain things where well now what's more important is more human connection, understanding, making sure other humans can use the output of whatever what my group does, kind of stuff. So I actually think
Yeah.
things have become more human, and which is
Yeah, I think we've lost that. I mean, you go to a restaurant, how many times do you see people like on their phones and not interacting with people? I got a text from a neighbor today that said, "Oh, I still get the actual Washington Post delivered to my house. I'm out of town. If anybody wants the paper, let me know. Just go help yourself." He said, I take great pleasure seeing my son, who's a sophomore in high school, read the paper and not be on his phone.
wow.
So, I mean, I think that's telling, right? There's some things that it's nice to go back old school. I find when I was working in my last organization, people would be challenging, and oh, I can't get a hold of this person; they're not responding. I said, well, did you call them? No. Well, pick up the phone, call them.
Yeah.
Oh, like there's I the lost art of a phone call. I love calling people, and
Yeah.
someone will text to say, "Can you talk?" I'm like, "Why don't you just pick up the phone and call me? If I can't talk, I won't answer the phone." I mean, where did that go? Like
Yeah.
scheduling an appointment to have a phone call, just call me. I like out of the blue. It's nice to get phone calls from people. You don't always
Yeah.
have to with my friends. Don't schedule an appointment to call me to talk. I mean, I'm not that
Yeah.
busy. Like if I can't talk, I won't answer. That's what voicemail is for. Where did it go?
Yeah, those ad hoc phone calls are a huge indicator of how close the relationship is and trust and everything
Yeah,
else, both personally and professionally. And it's a lost art,
it's the
right?
lost art of the phone call, and I think people just don't understand. Pick up the
Yeah,
phone. There's some
yeah,
things that should not be done through email. 25 emails is not effective. It's not efficient. Just pick up the phone.
yeah. Very easy to misunderstand that
Oh,
unilateral stuff. And so maybe with the machines, maybe with the work you're doing, there's a potential becoming more human, right? Connected,
mm.
understanding each other. When people are not in the right role and it's truly a disconnect, it's painful for them, and it's painful for everybody that's
And
dealing
there's
with that.
data that will show you that. I mean, you can do an assessment to check to see on well-being and where they are. And now, I mean, it's always like there's indicators. We wouldn't say, oh, this person is absolutely miserable, right? You'd have to go and get curious. I love to get curious.
Yeah,
Go talk to the individual and say, what's going on? I see like this might be an issue, but it is painful. And it's generally what I find since I've been working with MPO, managing performance and organization tool, that when they're not in the right role, it's because it's not aligned with their talents or their inherent personality. And once you have the conversation with the individual about it, it becomes so clear, right? If you say, tell me about a time when you're at your best, or tell
hmm
me at a time when, you really weren't happy, and what skills were, and you start taking them through this experience and showing them, well, you had to do these things in that role. And look, it's not where your strengths are. You
yeah,
just see these light bulb moments go off. And generally speaking, they're not happy, the company's not happy. It's just a mismatch. If you can find a different place in the organization, I've been very successful at that often. Everyone's happier, or it's just a much easier transition to an exit, to releasing them. They often will just leave on their own, or realize it's not a good fit and they'll exit themselves. It just everyone ends up better off.
openness, the clarity. Don't do something backstab. I mean, open clarity, conversations, figure out the right fit, and then people will come to a good, yeah, points of clarity. People
To be
generally come
clear
to a
is
good,
to be clear is to be kind.
yeah. That's uh, great saying.
It's one of my favorite.
Yeah. And then, putting my growth CFO hat on for a moment, so there's human pain for when they're not job insecurity, not fit, that kind of stuff. There's that. Then there's also financial impact. We bring somebody in, especially if it's a key role, like manager role kind of stuff, and they're not a fit. How long? I mean, normally 6 months it's going to run a cycle for 6 months and sometimes 2 years, right? And what's the
What's the
financially, what's the
cost?
cost of that? And then energy wise, especially for business owners, where they got to keep going back on the same things as this person because it's not connecting. And
so
man,
couple things there. So SHRM, Society of Human Resource Management, will give you will give you a range of the cost of a bad hire, right? Depending on the level of the individual, anywhere from 3 months to 9 months salary to, cost of a bad hire. And I will tell you, one, if you use a tool like MPO, one, it has to be validated by the EOC and APA and whatnot, to use in hiring. You can mitigate that cost. I'm not going to say eliminate it because it's still people, and people are, it's not 100%, right? But you can mitigate and reduce your attrition and whatnot. So that's very helpful, and you can find the best fit of the candidates available to you. So that's one. But and that'll reduce your cost to hire and turnover costs and whatnot. But the other thing, there's an old HR adage, which is be slow to hire and quick to fire. And that sounds kind of harsh. But if it's something that's not working out, you're not doing anyone any favors. Now, with this tool and other tools, you still want to try and make the person successful. So there are ways to look at, where can we make them successful, how to make them successful, use the tool. It comes like, here are the talents that we need you to improve on. You're at this level of it gives you 3 different levels of competencies. You're at this level competency. We need you to get to this level. And here's what it looks like, right? And here are the steps you need to take. But I so often find that clients are very resistant to exit people. Even when they know it's not working out, it's not, I don't want to be mean. But the cost of the organization, when the other employees see that you're not willing to exit someone who's not pulling their weight, who's not doing the job, who's not, is high, because other employees get upset, let alone the lost productivity, the stress on the organization, the stress on the team, but also the stress on the individual. That person probably knows they're, not doing a good job. That person is probably unhappy, and you're not doing them any favors either, because they're losing out on being in a role that makes them happy, that they're successful in, that they're thrilled with. Like, everyone's unhappy. So that's not good either, right? It's a lost opportunity cost for them. So,
sorry, go ahead.
No, fine.
Well, I was going to say, frequently I see that, especially if it's a key person, manager, executive, there's actually a concern or a fear that, if the person goes, these things will unravel. I've seen that fear expressed like almost consistently every time in this kind of scenario. I never once seen that. I've seen a few stuff where people leave, they take a few clients, that kind of stuff. So that's not good. But I've never seen the unraveling, right? I've always seen, like, once you get the person that's not a fit out of the picture, sometimes they're bad apples, C players. They're just poisoning everything. They want to bring everything down to their level that they're comfortable with. So they're poisoning everything, right? And they can't help it, right? Because they're so uncomfortable with the higher level of being remarkable. So I've seen some behavior. I never seen unraveling, and I never seen anybody regret. Most of the time people say, I should have done this sooner.
Right? I was going to ask you.
Including me.
I was going to ask you, what is the most common thing that you hear from people after a release?
Should have done it sooner.
Right. Almost every time, I should have done that sooner. No one says, oh, that was too soon. I've never heard anyone say, oh, I did that too quickly.
Never heard that at all. And as long as people are being transparent, like, we see the gap, we're working together to close it, then everybody knows we're either closing it, or it's either being closed or left open.
It should never be a surprise to anybody in that process, particularly the employee that you're releasing. It should never be surprised that they're being exited. Yeah. Like, nobody should ever walk in and be surprised when they're being released that day, right? That's not good. And it's so easily avoidable, right? Because to be clear is to be kind all the way through the process.
Yeah, because when it is a surprise, that's betrayal and not read all this stuff, and that's when lawsuits happen, that kind of stuff. But there's transparency and people are working in good faith. It's okay. Sometimes it's just not a fit, right? It's
Yeah.
not the end of the world, but let's do things in a way where both parties are able to, step forward and thrive and all that kind of stuff. So just to bring things home, what would you say is the highlight of your career so far?
One of the most fun roles I had, and really one of the highlights, was when I was CEO of the YMCA in New Zealand.
Oh, that's an
Um,
interesting.
I
What
know
happened
you probably wouldn't have
there?
guessed that. Well, I was this American woman coming into a town that I knew nobody. Um, and Americans in New Zealand
Yeah.
often are seen as tall poppies. It's a new culture, and it was tricky. And the previous CEO was just beloved by everybody there. So I had a lot of work. The Y was about to fall over. It was having a lot of financial difficulties. I ended up taking the board on in my first meeting because they were about to cut a program that I thought was a cash cow, and I don't think they realized it. Like, I think they were being given poor information, and I had just gotten there, and they were going to cut this program, and I said, hang on, I'm not comfortable you doing that. And it turned out to be a good decision. I remember one board member saying, hang on, Amy wants to take the board on in her first board meeting. Let's give her an opportunity to explain why. Again, assertive. But when I first walked in, they were very, leery of me. I was this kind of, outsider. And I turned the Y around. My team ended up just, being, very close friends and great team members. And I was beloved. And they gave me this incredible send off when I left. I was welcomed into the culture. I learned so much. I came up with some really innovative strategies to set them up long term. I thought did some things that had never been done at a nonprofit in New Zealand. I refreshed the brand, bought them, was involved in getting 2 properties for them. They had never owned their own space. I accomplished so much there, and really became part of the community. Was leveraging looking back now, knowing about MPO, I was leveraging all of my top skills in a way that just made me shine, made the Y shine. It was just, I became a loved part of the community. I'm very relational, and I go back and I'm still part of that community. I mean, they're my family. The Maori culture has this term whānau, which is like your greater family kind of tribe, if you will. And yeah, that's how I think of my Y peeps, my
That,
whānau.
that that's great when it comes together and people, right? Right. You're able to lean in and get results fast, and people are better off for it.
Yeah, and that's a part of why I named the company, my company. What I did, mana, is a
Wow.
Maori word for kind of your power, your influence, your kind of vibe, if you will. Its origins. It's kind of a nod to my New Zealand connection, and I still wanted to be tied to them. And
Yeah.
yeah, just
That's
yeah.
fantastic. It sounds like this is a special place for you in your life.
It is. Yeah, I'm still very connected. My daughter is a Kiwi citizen, and we go back. I've been back frequently since I left in 2012. I have a lot of friends and family there. So yeah, it's a special place.
That's fantastic. So, what is the best way for someone to contact you?
Well, it's pretty easy. It's Amy at manaadvisorygroup.com. It's a long email, but just flick me an email, and happy
Yeah.
to connect.
Yeah, I promise you, anybody who does that will be glad they did. Be certain of
Thank
that. So,
you.
I hope there's many more moments like that. The experience of the wild. There's many more moments like that ahead for you because it's a phenomenal journey.
Thank you. I really appreciate our conversation today, Kirk.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for coming on, and for the rest of you, I'll see you soon.